Live from the 22 News Studios, this is a Decision 2013 special program. Today, a debate with the candidates for Mayor of Chicopee. And now, here's Rich Teddemer.
Good afternoon. 22 News is working for you this week as we let the candidates you'll see on the ballot next Tuesday debate the issues. And today we focus on the race for mayor of Chicopee. Four-term Mayor Michael Bissonnette will debate his opponent, the former mayor of Chicopee, Attorney Richard Kos. This is a Lincoln-Douglas style debate where the candidates will ask each other the questions with time for answers and rebuttal. They'll have 30 seconds to ask a question and 60 seconds to respond, and then 30 seconds for rebuttal. First, each candidate will have 1 minute for an opening statement, and by virtue of the coin flip, Mr. Richard Kos goes first. Mr. Kos?
Thank you, and thank you, Channel 22, for having us here today to present our positions. My candidacy for mayor is based upon the belief that Chicopee can be a much better city than it is today. During my previous tenure as mayor, in only 6.5 years, 2 new high schools were achieved, and a main library and Fairview Fire Station were built. More importantly, though, we create a sound financial future for our city by increasing our stabilization fund from $37,000 to more than $10 million. Since I left office, I've maintained my commitment to the community. I serve as a trustee of Elms College, I sit on the Regional Employment Board, and I'm past chair of the Board of Directors of the Greater Chicopee Chamber of Commerce. I'm proud to continue to serve as co-chair of the private fundraising effort for our senior center. I made a promise 16 years ago to make a better Chicopee for all of us. I think I did that. Now I pledge again, in the face of challenges and missed opportunities, to work to increase our options for well-paying jobs, improving public safety, bettering our neighborhoods, and create a new level of accomplishment for our schools.
Mayor Bissonnette, your opening statement, please.
Well, thanks very much, Rich, and thanks to 22 for the opportunity. First and foremost, I want to thank all of those who were responsible for last night's huge success downtown for the Halloween party. To our staff, the Parks and Recs folks, and all the Chamber of Commerce sponsors who put that together for thousands of kids as part of the fiber and fabric of the city of Chicopee. You know, for the past 8 years, I've partnered with you to be able to become one of the best managed cities in the Commonwealth. When everybody else is looking at the effects of a global economic turndown and state cutbacks, we've managed to put $32 million through our stabilization fund, spending $10 to balance the budget and 10 more to keep your taxes down. We haven't had any layoffs, no cutbacks in services, and we've made sure that we've continued to have one of the lowest actual tax bills in the Commonwealth. Our bond rating is the best it's ever been, and we still have $13 million in our stabilization fund. Chicopee is on the right track. We continue to be the envy of our neighbors, and under my administration,
Mayor Bissonnette,
we'll continue to do that.
Gentlemen, once again, let's go over the ground rules. You have 30 seconds to ask a question, 60 seconds to answer it, and then 30 seconds for rebuttal. So when you see the times come up here, which is a yellow light and then a red light, it means you have to stop. Otherwise, I have to be rude and say, please stop. So hopefully we don't get there, but that's the ground rules right now for the Lincoln-Douglas debate. And by also virtue of the coin flip, we'll start with the questions, and Mr. Richard Kos actually has the first question today.
Thank you. Michael, on June 10th, you promised an independent investigation of the Chicopee Police Department, which would include an internal, financial, and operational review completed within 90 days by a former prosecutor you had hired. Not done. Instead, you said you did an internal review to be addressed by a former district attorney within 30 days. Not done. Instead, you now have stated that you've hired a private investigator to review the department. What's going on here? Really, the citizens of Chicopee deserve the truth.
Answer.
I think you need to get your facts straight. The private investigator is the former State Police Internal Affairs Lieutenant who is now retired and does integrity investigations for the state police and for others. Likely I should have brought him in at the beginning. We tried to keep it with local lawyers who were former prosecutors, John Pucci, Mary Beth Ogilevitz. They both looked through the 42 files and realized that they had worked with many of these police officers. So we went outside. I'm less concerned with the time and more concerned with getting it right. And there's been way too much focus on this internal affairs investigation. The focus should be on finding the deranged killer that's still out there. that murdered this young lady. That's what should be important. Going forward, we're going to fix the problems in the police department. Those corrections are already underway. But I'd rather get the focus back on what needs to be done to improve public safety and to find this killer.
Mr. Kos, your rebuttal.
Mike, this is a question of leadership. You appoint the chief, every officer, you make every appointment. It's your department. Today, you again state there were 42 issues. You've been in charge of this department for the past 8 years. The people of Chicopee deserve honest and truthful answers. You've called for an investigation which hasn't been completed in almost 5 months, which is very troubling. As mayor, either you know or should know what's going on in our department.
Mayor Bissonnette, your question. First question, please.
Well, thanks, Rich. Let me follow up on that with Mr. Kos, who says that a mayor should know everything that's going on in all of his departments. Richard, does this include what happened under your watch in the Chicopee Electric Light Department, the subject of an audit by the Ethics Commission that made strong recommendations on cleaning up that department, the failure in Veterans Affairs to properly run that department, resulting in $500,000 in benefits fraud? Under your appointed administrators, the HUD Office of the Inspector General came in and said that there were $1 million of federal funds wasted. How can you justify being critical of that when you yourself didn't know what was going on in your own departments?
And if I may, Michael, we'll start with the reverse. The HUD investigation involved Mayor Goyette and his designation and using the Aldenville Commons. And as a matter of fact, the dollars amounts there were approved by the HUD local rep before it even went through, as I looked through the records. But that clearly was something that happened after my administration. As a matter of fact, all of the instances that you're talking about here are matters, for instance, with the electric light that happened right at the turn of my tenure. I think we got noticed there were some issues at the end of December. Really, I don't think you should be using this as a smokescreen when we're really dealing with right now a very serious issue of public safety in our city. And it's easy to raise these type of issues when we're really talking about right now someone who's already stated we have an internal, operational, and internal affairs issues going on in our city that haven't been reported to us. If anything, the most recent information you've made available was because the newspapers made a Freedom of Information request, and then you finally turned that information over. Why wasn't that made available to us months ago?
Rebuttal.
Richard, it's disheartening to hear you deny any involvement with all of these problems that happened during your administration. You know, it seems to me that if you read the HUD Inspector General's report, a lot of this happened on your watch. The one thing that troubles me is when you shut down the CNDC and you move that back in-house, all of that money to absentee landlords that you did under your watch has been highly criticized by HUD, and much of that money had to be repaid to the federal government. In addition, I'm very, very...
Time, Mayor. Mr. Kos, your next question, please.
Thank you. Michael, you commissioned a study for unionized department heads, which made several recommendations. You then proposed immediate raises of up to $10,000, in some cases nearly 20% for them and your political appointees in your office, while not addressing most of the recommendations in the study. Why did you include your political appointees with such significant salary increases and not address the other important recommendations in your proposal during the time when you were offering no raises to other city employees?
Mayor?
For 8 years, we've had absolutely no union troubles in the city of Chicopee. In fact, they've partnered with us to make sure we had no layoffs by taking a 0% increases, and that includes the department heads. But the reality is we are professionalizing government, Richard. This is not a mom and pop operation anymore where you appoint your friends. This is a highly professional operation, and frankly, some of our professionals are sick and tired of people like you and members of the city council politicizing what they get paid. A professional should be paid a fair wage approximate to what others in the field are making in the Pioneer Valley. That's what the salary study did. And because we used a salary study, we have facts and data to back up what we do. We're not just flying by the seat of their pants. Those days are over.
Rebuttal.
It's unconscionable to me that you would give up to $10,000 in immediate raises to some of your political appointees when many taxpayers are struggling to pay their bills. That study recommended that raises for unionized workers be phased in over 3 years, include employee evaluation reviews, employee feedback, and a number of other management tools. The study did not even address your political appointees. This was not fair to the taxpayers.
Mayor Bissonnette, your next question.
Richard, last year during the tax classification hearing to talk about tax bills and taxpayers, you appeared, the only appearance I'm aware of before the City Council in my 8 years as mayor, to argue that homeowners' taxes should go up so your friends on the Chamber of Commerce could get a tax break. Do you want to explain that to the taxpayers?
Michael, it's interesting. I think it was 2 days before that you made a presentation to the Chamber of Commerce in which you indicated that there was going to be a $500 savings for all the businesses in Chicopee. And then the next day said, oops, we made a mistake.
Do you have an answer, or is that just an attack?
We made, if I may, and then you indicated the next day, oops, we made a mistake. We appeared, and the Chamber appeared that day to make sure that there would be a balance in our city between residential and business taxes. Business is extremely important. The burden on our residential owners, it's extremely difficult. There has to be a balance, and that's what we were trying to achieve that day, as opposed to just shifting the burden completely to really one of the most, a very important segment, which you continue to espouse. It's one of your primary goals to increase business in our city.
Rebuttal.
Well, the record's pretty clear. Last year, I proposed a tax cut for the residents. Mr. Kos and his buddies on the Chamber of Commerce came in and convinced the City Council, his allies there, to raise taxes on the homeowners. That was Richard Kos's tax increase last year. I proposed a tax cut. In 7 of the 8 years I've been mayor, we haven't even gone to the tax levy, the maximum. Richard tries to go to the tax levy limit. He even taxed people to put money in the stabilization fund. The facts are there. Go to the Department of Revenue website and you'll see it.
Mr. Kos, your next question, please.
My next question, but just as a little follow, it's interesting. Every year of the Bissonnette administration, they've raised taxes every year. I've looked at the numbers. Every year the levy has gone up. But as we go, you've made Uniroyal the cornerstone of your economic development policy.
Let me have a chance to ask a question.
Although I agree that the properties like Uniroyal need to be addressed. But how do you justify putting all the city's development effort into one basket? At a minimum, the cleanup cost of Uniroyal is going to be over $25 million taxpayer dollars without creating a single job for decades.
Mr. Kos. Mayor Bissonnette.
First of all, my tax rate right now is lower than Richard's tax rate was when he was mayor. Look at DOR's website and you'll see that. Hey, Richard, Uniroyal was something you didn't do anything about on your watch. It has sat there for over 30 years, a cancer, a blight on our community. Now, what we did was we borrowed $5 million up front, like 8 other communities in Massachusetts have done, to build a senior center. But we also leveraged that money to clean up the FaceMate site where buildings were falling down and were public safety hazards. We've gotten over $10 million so far to build the senior center, to clean up FaceMate, money from Mass Development, money from HUD, money from the EPA. We just got another grant from EPA yesterday to begin taking down buildings at Uniroyal. 4 are now scheduled to have asbestos removed and do the demolition. Richard, I know this is hard stuff. I know it's difficult. But we have the ability to go forward and do the tough challenges to make Chicopee better. It's better now than it was 8 years ago.
Rebuttal?
Michael, let's be honest here. You know my administration was in the housing court dealing with Uniroyal before I left office. And also, but more importantly, Chicopee needs a diverse economic development policy which emphasizes job creation now. We need to redevelop Capiteville Mills. We need to develop the fully permitted Chicopee River Business Park, which has remained untouched since I left office. My administration tackled tough brownfield sites. We're right now in a studio here, Channel 22, which was a brownfield site. Right down the street, the Registry of Motor Vehicles.
Mr. Kos. Mayor Bissonnette, your next question, please.
So let's talk a little bit about your economic plan. 3 weeks ago, we taped a segment on our local cable channel outlining our plans for the city. Richard did not mention any 6-point economic plan, but all of a sudden there's a press release and some media about, oh, I have a new plan. I've looked at that, Richard. Can you explain it to the people? Because it seems to be just a bunch of talking points.
Thank you. Michael, it's interesting. You know, that was a 3-minute presentation we gave to our community. It's not enough time to really outline 6 points. We're talking about fostering identity for our downtown. We're looking at using public investments to leverage private investments in our city. We need to coordinate our education programs to develop workforce development. I mean, right now in our area, there are 300 to 400 skilled precision manufacturing jobs that are going needed. On the Regional Employment Board, we're struggling to try to see how we can fill these jobs that pay from $40,000 to $70,000 a year. Michael, we have unbelievable state-of-the-art facilities here at Chicopee Comprehensive High School. We need to show that type of leadership and vision. That's one of the things that really got me excited when I saw what we weren't accomplishing in our city by trying and by not taking advantage of some of the facilities and opportunities we have in this area to serve our kids better.
Mr. Kos.
Sometimes I think Richard Kos is the only one that doesn't see the improvements and the good things happening in Chicopee. Let's talk about some economic expansion. Bimbo Bakery, Subaki is expanding, Hoppy Technology, J.R. Lyman and Lime Tech we kept here, unlike Universal Plastics, which Richard lost those jobs to Holyoke. The Covidians expanded. The Wall Street Journal built an expansion, and not to mention Memorial Drive in the base. Richard, take a look at this. This is Subaki. They advertised for second and third shifts just last week in the paper. AM lithograph.
Time, Mayor Bissonnette.
Lots of good stuff happening.
Boy, this is a lot of fun. We're going to take a short 2-minute break right now, and then more questions and answers with the men running for mayor of Chicopee. You're watching 22 News.